All right, good morning, everybody. Jake, what is wrong with your face, man? Like, I don't know what you were just doing. That was a little bit awkward. So welcome to episode 9, Security Matters with the Coffee Squad. We have a unique guest with us today. Some like him, some don't, but that's okay. I think everybody on this chat likes him, well, while he's here anyway. Once he leaves, like, we all hate him again. But Mike, welcome to the podcast, my man.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So Mike's got a unique story. We're gonna dig into that a little bit. You spent a lot of time in security, so I know we're gonna get into, kind of your thoughts about security of the world today, kind of where folks should be driving and what direction they should be going. But more importantly, he also has his own business, woodworking business. And those that listen to this thing know I like woodworking. I just like it, right? That doesn't mean I'm good at it. Mike is very good at it. So I think I even picked up woodworking because of him and watching him, and it's been a huge stress relief. So I am excited to talk about security as always, but I think more importantly, I'm excited to talk just a little bit about that. So today we're going to talk about security convergence. We'll get that kind of moving forward with him in a second, but probably the most important thing this morning, Mike, we're going to start with you. What are you drinking? What's your choice?
What am I drinking? Coffee, a little 8 o'clock, their traditional blend.
Oh, traditional blend. Well, well, you know what? Since that, let's just go to Will and let's see what kind of traditional blend he's drinking today.
I'm actually drinking a Green Mountain Coffee light roast breakfast blend.
Oh my Lord, Colombian.
No, it's
pink
not all
and
that.
zip. It has a hint of bamboo and coconut. Jake, what coffee are you drinking, man?
You see it? A delicious, clear cup of water.
Water, like always. Yeah, that's. I think we're gonna have to rethink our name. Maybe it needs to be the Coffee Duo and Water Guy. Maybe that's what we should.
If it is
rename.
water,
Could be a little tequila.
Red Bull.
yeah, there you go.
Well, that's the
How you
question.
guys are.
It may be vodka in that cup. It may not be water.
And Jake is frozen.
Yeah, I think that kind of leaves the questions a little bit open. So everybody's been reading the news, I hope. So, Mike, this is a big question, man, and just know you're going to be on the national news answering this. All 60 of our listeners are going to know exactly what you say here. So be smart about what you reply with. What's going on in North Korea, man? Is Kim Jong-un dead, or is he alive?
Oh no, he's alive.
Okay, so you're going with he's alive.
Yep, he's in a bunker.
He's in a bunker, living the dream right now. Do you think he's
With
still in North Korea?
With Tupac.
with Tupac. Oh, that is great. Will, what do you think?
I don't know. I think he's gone. Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. I mean, everything's coming out of. You can't trust anything, but they're saying he's alive. But from what I've read, everything they've produced has been pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, poor Jake, man, he fell off. That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, here's my concern is that South Korea comes out and obviously says, hey, nah, man, he's alive. I think that they're doing it, obviously, because they're losing money, right? Like their stock market, everything else is going down with the idea of him not being around. So it's hard to kind of get through the what's real and what's false of this entire case. I am going to go with Mike, and I think that he's in a bunker somewhere with Tupac and Biggie, and they're singing.
Well, and I think anytime you especially when you have a country that influences the media so much, and it's not reporting news, it's all a marketing thing. I mean, they're
That's right.
telling a program story, so it's going to be kind of hard to sift through what's real and what's not.
No, I completely agree. I mean, it's the brand of the country, right? So with that, not to switch gears here from North Korea, but that was an interesting thing for this week. Kind of the next question, Will, for you is, what is your thoughts on states loosening quarantine restrictions? I mean, obviously we know south of us in North Carolina, like it's starting, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that because of the way the states are, here in the U.S., every state has a right. So, if this governor feels that their state's ready to go, like South Dakota, I don't think they've shut down hardly anything except maybe the plant that had all the cases because, each state's different, each with cases, population, stuff like that. So I think each governor should do what's best for their state.
Yeah. And I wonder, but South Dakota's got like 10 people in it, right?
I think a few more than that, but yeah.
Okay, well, it was a good try. Mike, what do you think?
I don't think we've hit South Dakota yet, so you're safe.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough one because although I'm a big proponent of states' rights and that, the executive leadership at each state has that kind of responsibility to make that decision, with the freedom of movement people have. And, it makes it tough because is everyone really following all those restrictions that were put in place now?
No.
I mean, we'd be a fool to believe that. So, I don't know. Some of the stuff I read, people, of course, on social media, some of the people that make some of the biggest ruckus are probably some of the biggest people that are,
Not following
really
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the part for me is we know it's highly contagious. And we talked about this a couple of times. It's highly contagious, and we don't have the serum to protect people. So, it's more about if you're okay doing it, man, it's fine. Like, I mean, to me, it's leave it open, man. You want to go out and do your thing, man, go do it. Like, that's 100%, it's your right. I mean, that's the great part of being in America. You have your own freedoms. At the same part, I'll continue to Sasquatch this thing and be a little bit quarantined because I have a lot of older folks, my wife's family that I honestly, I don't want to pass this to. So, and then I also, from the military, my face is all jacked up, my nose, CPAPs and all kinds of other things, man. And I just, I want to be cognizant of that. And I've read way too many stories about, families losing a loved one and then not being able to be there with them. Yep. And I think that's devastating to me, man. Like, and it's just not worth it. My life still goes on. Yes, I want to be out. I'm still, I'm still running. I'm still like, I see Mike, I see you running all the time. Like, I'm still physically doing stuff. Yes, I would love to go shopping, but honestly, I don't like to go shopping. So, like, only thing I want is wood, man. Like, I don't really want anything else. So I think it's definitely a unique kind of time period for us in general. Well, I don't know if you have any other comments on that.
I do. Well, it's good for us because, luckily we can work from home. We're not required to go to work. But if you start opening up businesses and employers require their people to come in and they don't feel safe, I mean, at what point are they going to be mandatory to come in? Are they going to lose their job for not showing up?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a slippery slope there when you start talking about people coming back to work and businesses opening up and requiring their workers to be there. So that's the only thing I kind of have issue with, and I don't know if there's any protections in place for those people, so.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one there though, because even right now, even with the restrictions, I mean, what employee is essential or what businesses are essential? Right. It's such a loose term that gets thrown around, where right now there's people that would love to, be home with their families and be furloughed and don't feel safe, that are having to work out of fear of, losing their jobs, where, other people, got furloughed just because of the company they worked for. So I think it's just going to become more blurred as restrictions start getting lifted, and then especially when you have a firm that has, multi-state locations. How are they going to do that?
Yeah. Well, and I also think now's the time to start being proactive about what the new norm is. Like, we need to start talking about that quick. States are already starting to open up, and everybody knows here from a security standpoint, you want to be proactive, not reactive. So I think there's a point now where we've got to start to lean pretty quickly to figure that out. I don't know when North Carolina is going to, kind of open up its borders and, and everything else. And we're going to start going back to the new norm, but I know it's coming. It's got to, there's no question. And you're getting a lot of pressure from small businesses. We're all part of a small business, right? We all have our own things that we're doing, all three of us here, separate to just this. And I know for me, from a security standpoint, it has impacted that. It has impacted my, my time inside of the nonprofit sector, trying to support, veterans and active duty and all that. Mike, I know it's affected you with, woodworking in a sense, more so about getting the wood and just having that mindset. And then, of course, you and your wife. So I think you got to be proactive now. I mean, what do you guys think about that? What's the next steps in your mind? And I'll go with Mike. That good, huh? Can't hear me?
No. Hey, so for new norms, that's the thing I think people just need to realize. Like, it doesn't need to go back, and the firms that can kind of reinvent themselves, those are the ones that's going to be successful. Not going back to the norms. It's just being. So, example, I do some work with the Lone Survivor Foundation. Mm-hmm. They have a post-traumatic growth program, and it's normally a long weekend in-person program, and they've really quickly been able to kind of reinvent themselves. Not that they won't go back to that kind of program, but created a virtual program where they can still have outreach to vets that need help, and that's where I think people just need to be flexible. If they're stuck on how things used to be, I mean, that's how a lot of businesses died. They did the same thing for 50 years and then all of a sudden had to shut their doors because they couldn't be reactive to the market.
No, that's absolutely true. Will, what do you think?
I don't know. I go back and forth on this because if you look at the numbers, they're, like North Carolina, they're talking about how the numbers are jumping. Well, obviously they're jumping because they're testing more. Yeah. And there's a study in Stanford. They're talking about how there's way more people who have gotten this that didn't even know it or didn't test positive or didn't get tested at all. And so when you start factoring in all the numbers, how bad is it really? How deadly is it really? Obviously towards the elderly and immune compromised, it's highly deadly, right? There's a high mortality rate considering other groups, but young, healthy group, do you really have to change that much? Yeah. As long as I'm in the big belief that you should be washing your hands and practicing social distancing to begin with. I don't like people up on me and dirty hands, but hey, if you're not washing your hands, then maybe
yeah. So you're not good. You're not good every time I see you. I just come up and give you a bear hug. Like you're not.
Yeah.
Okay
No.
with that,
no, not with that. Grizzly.
What I mean? It's like, hey, come here, buddy, and just like wrap my arms around you. Yeah. You may want to pull that out.
Push away. Hold up my knee.
All right. Well, so let's move into some security articles.
Well, before we start that, I think maybe Mike should kind of give us a background and introduce himself. Since we.
Oh well, we don't have to worry about that, man. Mike's fine. Look at him. He's good. He's gonna have 20 minutes of talking about himself. All right. It's too late now. We've already moved on. Look at him. Look at him right now. He's ready to fight you for even saying he just wants to run. You know what? Put your Instagram up. Show your sexiness running around. That'd be great. So Mike, start with you, man, with article of the week, man. What you got? What are you thinking? Look at him. Can you hear me?
Is this thing on?
Is this thing on? Is this thing on?
Can you hear?
Is Mike? It working? Yeah, I can. Yep. Thumbs up, man. You hear me?
I do.
Okay, perfect, man. I don't know what's going on, man. I don't know if the mic. These are going to be good bloopers, man.
Yeah,
I'm a digging it. So, do you got an article that you want to talk about, Mike? Anything that's touching you this week?
No, nothing really stood out that I was able to find.
Okay, perfect. Will, what do you got, man? Anything stood out to you?
Yeah, Google sees state-sponsored hackers ramping up coronavirus attacks, which we kind of talked about previously. But obviously, when there's something going on, there's going to be people taking advantage and focused attacks. And so the state-sponsored attacks are, hey, coronavirus news, click here. I get those emails all the time. So I don't know how about you guys are, but in my spam and stuff, I get those emails all the time. And like you say all the time, right? Don't click it.
Yeah, just don't click it, man. Phishing's horrible, especially out in the corporate space. Yep. And even now the text messaging, Zoom bombing, and everything else that's happening right now. Not a lot of articles this week that I saw either. I mean, obviously we touched on the North Korea piece a little bit, which was good. What I'm really interested in now, I think, is getting into Convergence Security. And then, Mike, learning about you, man. Learning kind of where you were, your life in general, and then kind of what you're doing now. I mean, that'd be great to kind of start digging. So kind of step away from the mic, man, and let you talk about yourself a little bit.
Oh, that's a subject I really don't like broaching. It's kind of a scary subject. So me, a little bit about me, I guess, professionally. So I'm currently transitioning from the military, 24 years in the Army. Spent that time as a military policeman, with about half that time, about 12 years, supporting the U.S. Army Special Operations Command, doing force protection and security. Kind of with my final position, my culminating position as the Chief of Protection and Provost Marshal for the U.S. Army Special Operations Command. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, currently transitioning, trying to figure out what the new norm in my life is, and what's next as I go forward.
Yeah. What do you think your biggest, from a security perspective, what was your main kind of responsibilities in the military?
Well, I think it was kind of that integration piece. So, both, kind of, whether it was supporting a special operations task force forward, or, just kind of back here, supporting, in CONUS, in garrison, and training, and all the other things. It was really kind of bringing all those pieces together. The whole umbrella of security. Whether you're into the hip terms of security convergence or enterprise security risk management. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to have a big picture person that can take a step back, look at everything. From what you're protecting, what your vulnerabilities are, what your threats are, and kind of piecing that together. Nothing against the the security guys that are very, whether it's your IT guys, whether it's your cyber guys or stuff like that. Those are all needed, but you got to have someone that's kind of the big picture guy.
Yeah. Well, and in the corporate space, which you're definitely going to be moving into, that is your chief security officer, some CIO, there's multiple positions. And unique thing, every company is not the same. Some companies are very different about how they do security. The good news is the majority of them try to have one big picture guy or gal. I think the bigger problem with the majority of them is not leaning one direction over the other, if that makes sense. And that's kind of what convergence is. Convergence is understanding that each piece of the puzzle is as important as the other piece. So having a human element, having a technical element, and having the physical element all be part of what you do is important. And for you, Mike, being in the military and spending your life in, what I would say inside special operations, right, which is at the tip of the spear. I mean, that is what special operations is good for. And, not only training, but also spending, your life with countries that may or may not have the best security posture in place. That's kind of where you step in. You step in with your PISOs. So did you have others around you from a security perspective that were there to help kind of bring that convergence in, like your IT guys and human and some of that?
Yeah. And that's where I think, kind of having those subject matter experts, when, the problem sometimes some big picture strategic guys forget is that when you're a big picture guy, you need those guys that are all about the details, and knowing that. So putting the right team together is important. So you have a cyber guy that can be your subject matter expert. You have your identity management guy. You can have your physical security guy.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And Will, from your perspective, you coming from military also, but you spent some time in the law enforcement. Does law enforcement look at that similar now? Are they changing to match some of that as well as what Mike was talking about?
Yes. Well, obviously, the bigger the departments, they're going to have more resources. So smaller departments, one person's going to wear multiple hats. But yeah, the larger ones are going to have your intelligence centers, and you're going to have your incident command centers, stuff like that, where one person's in charge, and then they have the experts. Like you have your cyber guy, you have your surveillance guy, you have your human intel guy, have all that stuff, and they bring it all together and they direct. It's like one big orchestra. What is a maestro called? The conductor, right? So just having everybody do what they're supposed to do and putting it all together.
Yeah. So Mike, from your perspective, I like to try to simplify security in general, because it's one of the things that I learned after leaving service is that when you get into the corporate space, there's a lot of people giving some great great webinars and great books, but it's just very convoluted. So the baseline guy or gal trying to come into the security industry, it can be overwhelming. And the way that we try to just layer this down is this: you got to know the asset to be able to determine the risk, threat, and vulnerability. Do you agree with that? And can you add anything additional from your experience?
Yeah, I think that's the cornerstone of risk management in general, and a lot of people forget that, because at the end of the day, whether you're actually selling something, or you're just trying to get additional support for, and I think this is the same in the military as in the civilian world. It might not fit, but obviously, if we'll pick on the cyber guys. If you're a cyber guy, you're going to peddle your wares, you're going to peddle your capabilities, and you're going to market yourself. There may or may not be in that instance a cyber threat, though.
That's right.
Doesn't mean you don't have a place at the table. And that's where I think, whether it's a consultant or whatever, having that generalist, having that guy that can step back and give advice, like you were mentioning, some of these companies have these security officers in place, but how many companies, especially, your smaller companies, don't have that person?
That's right.
Where maybe, maybe the COO is expected to, have that job title also.
Yeah.
So it can be a little overwhelming when you get someone that comes in there and has, the gadget that's going to fix all their security needs. I think now's a perfect time where, with all these cyber attacks and stuff like that going on right now, you see a lot of people ramping up capabilities and marketing those capabilities to companies like, hey, we're going to help protect you and your assets. But I also know there's a lot of physical security issues going around, a lot of insider loss prevention issues and stuff like that. I've heard of, especially like nursing homes, long-term care facilities, where getting shipments of masks and gloves and stuff, and the stuff disappearing right off the loading dock.
Yep.
Who's
right.
doing that? Probably an employee.
That's right.
Yep.
No, that's I think that's a good point. Again, it brings to me, which is the key part here. If you know the asset you're trying to protect, everything else will fall into place. So, a minute ago I said all three were important, and they all three are, but there may come times where your asset will make you focus on one more than the other, but just make sure you're looking at all. So just because it's human based, right? So we say it's physical. So let's say it's the CEO. Just because CEO, and we're going to put, executive protection folks on that person, does not mean that there's not a cyber threat. Doesn't mean that there's not other security concerns that you need to be aware of that you're not looking at. Will, do you agree with that? Do you have additional thoughts from your side on, which one's more important?
Well, I do agree, and obviously, I think asset's going to be your most important. I think one thing is a lot of people don't really understand what asset means, or they have the wrong idea what an asset is. Because if you run a company and you think the only asset you have is your proprietary information or the product you made, and if you think that's your only asset, you're thinking wrong. So a lot of times I think people don't have a misconception of what an asset is or why it's important.
Yeah, here's the thing. So, and just to help with that definition, I think this is important. It's whatever is valuable to you is the asset. Like that's the important part, right? Every company is going to be different. There will not be two IT companies that think their hardware is valuable, right? Because one IT company may not have, they may be at the non-secret level. They don't have anything that really matters. There's no confidential conversations. It's just it's like me and Mike just texting back and forth, right? Because we're consulting. Instead, you may have a company that may be in the defense industry where that is their most valuable thing, which is that. So think of it as the most valuable thing in your company, whether it's a thing, it's a person, or it's something with quality based in there. Mike, for you, I think the other part of this is the risk, threat, and vulnerability. I think those are the other things that the definitions start to get really construed on what each one of them is. I'm not going to have you define them because that's wrong. I didn't tell you about that, going into this thing. But what I would ask, from you, what do you see the difference between a risk assessment and then a vulnerability assessment, and from your thought process in doing it in the military?
I don't know. I've always kind of, blurred them all together because I think I think you get people that will get stuck on a certain term or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they just go down a road when at the end of the day, I don't know. I'm not I don't like getting stuck on different terms or terminology. I think you've got to look at it all.
I think you're right. And I, to me, it's and we've talked about this before, and I didn't say it earlier, but me and Mike had the great luxury of serving together, which was lovely.
He taught me everything I know. I don't know if
that's a lot.
I don't know if that's something to brag about.
No, like he doesn't know anything. Thanks, Mike. He just told everybody. No, I think the thing that I've learned that's been really probably the most impactful for me is the understanding offensive security is just as important as defensive security. So when I think back of what me and you did, like if I just take it back and I step back, the best way I can think about it is we look across the entire Army is what the Army does, and we piece all those pieces. We look at what we did, right, like protecting and all of those things. We never really put ourselves in the offensive role, right? Sometimes until we had to, because as you progress inside of special operations, you get to see different things. And I think there was a point there where you're like, oh man, offensive is just as important to defensive. And that to me is the difference between risk and vulnerability. A risk is I'm going to walk around with a keyboard and I start to, basically everybody knows I'm there, right? I'm just walking around looking at safety concerns, risk issues, threats, things like that. When you move into vulnerability, nobody knows, man. Like I am, what is the way that I can crack into this thing, into this asset without somebody knowing that it's happening? But just like you said, you pair it all together, man. And I think that's such a unique thing that I just don't see a lot in the security space is folks thinking like you just said. Will police similar to that? Are they in that kind of same mindset?
As a police officer, yes, but you talk about like a homeowner or even a business owner, you're not really concentrated necessarily on the offensive aspect of it because, you're not going to say, hey, go get the guy. You're going to call the police and have them do it. So you don't really concentrate on the civilian side as much for the offensive aspect of it. So it's mainly defensive protection, security.
Well, I kind of look at offensive security though as posturing, how you posture yourself. Like it's not offensive like you're going on,
2-foot kicking people, man. Let's do it.
Attacking, but it's how you posture yourself, and that's offensive security. You're not waiting for that. One of the best security courses I ever took, because it was one of the biggest eye openers for me, at least in the physical security realm, was I got to go to a surreptitious entry course. And all the physical security courses you always go, they'll talk about delay. Everything's a delay.
Yeah.
But when I went to that surreptitious entry course and I realized just how little those things actually protect and how little of a delay those things actually are, it was a bit of an eye opener for me, and I think that completely changed how I look. So posturing, I think, is huge. And that's also for the homeowner, how they posture themselves, whether they present as a soft target or a hard target. And so there is things businesses, individuals, homeowners can do to take, that offensive posture.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're hitting it, Mike. And it's probably how I said it. I'm not best with words. Let me say that. But what I would say is that it's thinking about the person that would be attacking, and I don't mean with a club. Maybe they will. Like, who knows?
It's coming back.
But thinking about how somebody would get into your house, if it's your house, for instance? What's the easiest routes inside of it? Do you have your doors and windows locked? So you're thinking through this plausible thing. Like, you don't need to be a security person to do this. A lot of this is common knowledge. It's kind of like, hey, it's like making the option of locking your car doors. If you don't lock your car doors, there's probably a pretty good chance that somebody at some point is going to figure it out. They're going to open up your door. They're going to take something. But if you lock it, okay, it's still a problem. They can still break a window, but at least now you've got an alarm. So now if they break the window, then the alarm goes off. So like it's just this thought process like Mike was talking about, which I probably didn't say very well, but it's having that offensive mindset of you putting yourself into the threat actor's role to go against whatever the company is, home, business, whatever. So Will, I know you may have something you wanted to add to that.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I was just terminology and way to think, I was thinking that's more defense. Think offensively, react defensively. So I get what Mike's saying. So yeah, I agree with him. You definitely got to predict and analyze how you are vulnerable to your attacks or your entries or whatever. And yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. And so from a company perspective, Mike, and I'm going to kind of tell you what we do from a company perspective, because I'm interested to get your thought process on this. But for us, when we go into an organization and we start that process, if the organization feels that they are secure, right? Like they have all the pieces in place, the systems are in place. Like we can see, when we're walking for the meeting and, we've got to check in, we got to get a badge, we got to sign in. There's no free access, all these points. I'm probably not going to do a red team penetration test of any sort, because they're already, excuse me. I'm probably going to do one at that point, because they're already set in place and their security from my visual, just kind of coming in, looks pretty good, right? If I go in though and they don't have any of that, I've already researched the company and I know that they do things that somebody would want to attack, then I'm not wasting their time or their money. Because again, I think that's the part that you hit on earlier. To me, I'm not trying to sell something. What I'm trying to do, you're in business, right? What I'm trying to really do though is, from my perspective, is to protect people, to give them experience and knowledge to be better at protecting themselves and protecting their customers and their clients. And I'm only going to do what I need to do to get them to that point. I don't want to go overboard and just show them everything, because you and I have lived in that world where somebody comes in and does an inspection and it's just like, man, I could have already told you that we didn't have that data. Like, why come in and do that? And I think it's even more important now from a customer-client relationship that you've got to be careful about how and what you do. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about kind of what you see a good security program or consulting work kind of looking like.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the responsibility security professionals, I think, have, and unfortunately, because there is, like you said, it's a business. Like,
that's right.
So there is that kind of sales piece in with it, but the responsibility to kind of pair the service to the needs of the customer is important. And also making it fit, how many times, in our previous work, did someone want a false sense of security, like millions of dollars of T-walls, maybe that weren't necessarily justified due to the location of the current threats.
Yeah.
But it made people comfortable. But did that really secure them, or was that a false sense of security?
Yeah.
I think the whole red team thing is important, and that can be scaled too. I think any of it can be scaled to fit the needs. You take a company like Google, who obviously takes security very seriously in the information security side. They have people that their only job in life. I actually have a friend of mine that does this for Google. Their whole job in life is to hack Google.
Yeah.
You can posture yourself. You can have those things out there, those visible things of badging, of access control. But if you're not willing to test it,
yeah,
how good is it?
Yeah, and I think that's the other part too, where you bring up an interesting thing. I'm a huge proponent that you have to. True testing comes external to the organization, not internal. And the only reason I say that, because I just feel like everybody knows what their problems are. So you kind of think, yeah, I know that's there, and you just kind of move on. Like you're not giving it a fair shake sometimes, and nobody wants to be the bad steward either. I've never met a security guy. I mean, even when I was doing it in the military, and I'm sure you can agree with this. I don't want people to know my dirty laundry, man. Like it's my dirty laundry. It took me a long time until really probably a couple years before I retired to realize, man, like who cares? It's not about me in the first place anyway. It's not like somebody's going to judge me because we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect. I don't care who you are. It's the same reason why I don't like the term expert, because I just don't feel like there is any such thing as an expert, because things change too quick, man. Like you're constantly evolving, new equipment's coming out. It's like woodworking, which we're going to talk about here in a second. I mean, can you be an expert in a field that the machinery changes, the type of wood changes? Yeah, I mean, I think you can be an expert in the type of woods and hardwood versus softwood. How to develop things. But if all those other pieces are changing constantly, you can never really be an expert unless you know it all. And it's really hard for us to live just life in general and be good at just one thing if we have all kinds of other things that are going on. So do you think there's such a thing as an expert in the security field?
Oh, absolutely not. So, I mean, I think this goes to a deeper philosophical conversation of, the mindset, the fixed versus growth mindset.
Yeah.
If you look historically at the market in general, at how companies perform, what companies are still around, all of that, I mean, it goes back to, the companies that are still around today are the ones that have been able to redefine themselves, reinvent themselves, and be adaptive to the market as it changed. I don't know how many times I've gotten into debates with people of, what killed the mom and pop stores.
Yeah.
Consumer spending killed the mom and pop stores.
Yeah.
I mean, we put our money where we put our money, and so taking it back to security, I think the moment you think you throw a couple letters at the end of your name and you're a security expert, that probably means, and nothing against, I'm not knocking all the certifications and stuff like that. I think it's important to stay up on your craft, but
that's the thing. You're growing, right? Like
yeah.
Your PSPs, your CPPs, like those are good because you're growing. Just make sure you're not taking those out of context. Just like us, right? Probably the best person I ever talked about when I first came in the military about what it was like being in the military was somebody. I had two people I talked to somebody that was from World War II, and I had somebody that was from Vietnam. Neither of those two had anything to do with the current age, right? Like we're different equipment, different times. Like, I mean, it was just completely different. But man, it was in a VFW, man, and I thought they were like, man, they're the ones. Then I meet my squad leader and go, oh, oops, no, I need to listen to that guy because he's currently in it. He's currently doing so I think there's, yes, those other two folks, man, I still say is the hardest generation still because the lack of equipment and things that they had, they're more than me. I mean, I could just get on a radio and, call an airstrike in pretty easy, right? Like in some instances. So I think that's an interesting point from you, Mike, on that stuff. Will, what do you think from your side? I mean, is there such thing as an expert, especially in law enforcement, man? Because law enforcement is an interesting craft and trade, if you will.
Well, for court purposes, a lot of people get qualified as a expert witness.
That's right.
So
yeah, that's right.
You're going to be considered an expert as far as testimony, stuff like that. Now, I'm with you guys where I always seek out more training. I think you should learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Whether it's in personal or professional life, I try to learn something new every day.
Yeah.
And I think that's how most people should do it. Now, the problem is once you do get certified as an expert in your field, a lot of times you start relaxing, oh, I'm an expert. Well, 10 years from now, things are going to be completely different. And if you don't continue with the current trends and way things are going, equipment, all that good stuff, you're no longer an expert. You're a relic.
No. Yeah. No, That's a good point. Well, Mike, now I want to get to what I think is going to probably be the most interesting part of this conversation. Security is important, by the way, but it's your business, man. It's so talk us through what you're doing now, man. Kind of your, I know you've got the personal business as you're kind of transitioning, but kind of talk us through what that looks like.
Yeah. So for the last 6 or so years, I've had a kind of a side business, Mertzke Custom Woodworking. It's always been kind of a hobby of mine, building stuff, home renovations, but kind of decided to formalize it a little bit about 5-6 years ago. But I have a small wood shop, in my garage, and
so small, man. That thing looks like it's not it's in a garage, so I understand the term small. But like when you look at it, it's like state of the art lasers everywhere.
How big is the planer? That's that right there. I'll tell you
exactly. That's
it's only a 15-inch. I didn't have room for the 20-inch. Yeah. So I always say, I got a 20 by 20, 2-car garage, and it's my little wood shop. And then people come over and they'll walk into my wood shop and kind of wide eye it when they realize that I have fit an entire commercial wood shop into my 2-car garage. So
no cars fit in there.
Oh no.
He's got everything, man. Dust collection. I mean, I CNC machines. It's just like, I go out and I buy a couple of things. I like go to Lowe's. Like, oh, here, let me get a planer. And I can barely fit like the, like a 1x4 in it, right? Like I'm just like, oh my God, are you kidding me right now? Then I see videos of his, and I'm like, ugh. So I take it all back to them, buy new stuff, because I'm like, oh, that's how he does it, and he doesn't have to like glue everything together, and like all of these things that you just that you don't think about.
But I mean, I started there, and speaking of the planer, so I'm milling up some lumber. I think I was doing something, and I was milling up a bunch of white oak, and it's pretty hard wood. And I mean, I don't even remember how many board feet of white oak I was planing, but like the little lunchbox planer I had like, blue sparks flying out of the motor, just like, and I called my wife in there, and, and she's like, what'd you think was going to happen? You're running a business with a tool that was designed for, the weekend hobbyist and stuff like that. And I was oh yeah.
No, I think that's a true statement.
Upgrading. Obviously not everyone is gonna, unless they just got extra money sitting around, is gonna upgrade. But I mean, it's been a work in progress. Now I just need a bigger shop.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm expecting next. I'm expecting one day to go to Instagram or Facebook, for your company, and just see you basically tearing your house apart to add another garage so that you have more space. What kind of stuff are you making right now?
Really a mix of everything. So I do a lot of, especially, being right outside of Fort Bragg, do a lot of small like plaques and stuff like that. I mean, I even I have a couple clients I even ship plaques I make for them up to like, the DC area, Belvoir and stuff like that. Smaller home decor stuff, cutting boards, little signs, all the way up to, furniture. I'm designing a table, kitchen or dining room table right now for a client. So I like it all. When I started the business, of course, all the business experts come out and they tell you, oh, you got to find your niche and do that one thing and stick with it. But I like it all. I mean, still, I would say probably one of my biggest, things I make that, I get a lot of requests for is I make an American flag coin rack. Yeah. And I have a couple different styles I make and customized it a few different ways for clients and stuff like that. But, still get quite a few orders for that. But at the same time, although I love making those, I don't want to just be the flag guy,
That's right. Well, and that's the hard part, man. That's the hard part in life, because when you're really good at something and people really like it, then it's really hard to, and I see this every day, man. I see guys that are they're really good at one, and again, you are not just really good at one thing. You've got a lot of things, but because your flags are so good and they get talked about so much, that is how people know, especially you. So it's easy to kind of get stuck into that groove point which is where I think the niche thing came from, right? I mean, same thing in me, my first business, t-shirts. And it was like, hey, nobody told me the niche thing. Let me just tell you that. I went out and just, it's like being airborne again. I just literally walked out the door and said, let's hope I got a parachute. Oh, did I remember the parachute? As I'm like jumping out of the plane, right? And I learned very quickly that going wide was not the right answer right off the bat. I mean, you do need to niche it in because you have to grow. It's the same thing we're doing right now, right? I mean, we've got 4 or 5 different things that we do. Podcasting is something that we enjoy. So like that's a very important piece. Is honestly, to me, I don't care, what happens with this. I just know it's getting information out to people and hopefully they're getting something. But you got to grow we have to grow the community though.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's why, that was one of my decision points of why I'm going to keep it as a side business and, go find another day job, another, future career, whatever that ends up being. But because for my woodworking, because although it's a business, it makes money. Yeah. It's also a passion of mine. And as I looked at what it would take to scale the business, to set up a commercial shop, and all the things that are required to scale an effective business, I wasn't willing to do that with my woodworking. That would require hiring other craftsmen to do it. And as much as everyone likes to complain about sanding, I like the fact that when people come to me and they want a custom piece made, I'm the one doing it for them. I'm not handing it off to someone else. So for me, that was just something I had to kind of be honest with myself and say, okay, hey, if I'm not willing to do this to scale the business, then it needs to stay at where it is.
Yeah. No, that's exactly the same thing I did with the t-shirt business. Will, I know you make your side hustle is making Twinkies and cupcakes. So how does that work? Do you need a planer for that or?
Well, that's more my wife's thing. I just kind of help out when I'm needed.
Okay, listen, man. Your wife's thing is your thing. Let's be clear. I mean, I even know that, bro.
Her thing is her thing, and my thing is
whatever.
Her thing,
bring her on a podcast right now. Let's ask her that. I ain't what she's gonna say.
But I think Mike brought up a good point. When you do have a hobby that you are monetizing, you get to that point where you have to make the decision whether you want to scale it up and make that a career, or if you want to, and a lot of times it comes down, do you think you're going to enjoy it, right? So, what's the saying? If you love what you do, you don't never work a day in your life. Well, that's kind of true, but not really, because you have to bust your tail, especially in the beginning. You have to work long hours hard to get to where you can enjoy what the benefits of it. So, Mike brought up a good point with him deciding that he still wants it to do a hobby. He still wants to have that personal touch and not upscaling.
But it's still work, and I think that's that's a good. So and I know this is very different from probably anyone else. I like the work. I like the idea of the work. I've had people tell me that especially they're like, oh, it must be nice that you can find something that you love, and so you're not really working. No, it's work.
Oh yeah, it's definitely work, man.
It's work, but I think, Ray, because you're a t-shirt business, you enjoyed it, but it got to the point where you're just like, I don't really enjoy this anymore.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's exactly
but
right.
This is more work than enjoyment now. So I think it's important when you are deciding to start your own business, if you're prepared to maybe reach that point.
Yeah. Well, and I look at Mike. So I look at the labor industry as a whole, the trade industry, because what Mike's doing is working with his hands. It was kind of the same thing with t-shirts, right? T-shirts were not like, it wasn't like we ordered them online and then they just got sent out. Like, no, we had to physically, you would take the shirt out. We got to inspect the shirts, and it's me, it's my family, man. It's not, I didn't have 100 people helping. It's 3 people, and you're getting hundreds of t-shirt orders. And, at some point the hobby, which because what I loved about the t-shirt business is, and it's why I love, still love woodworking, is the graphical piece of that. I am a very graphics, video driven person. I love that stuff, man. It's interesting to me. So being able to take being able to take a kind of a thing in my head and be able to tell somebody, and then go and then draw it and then make it and then put that onto a t-shirt. At the end of the day, man, I honestly didn't care if people bought it. What I did do though, is I moved into an industry where there wasn't a lot of t-shirts, right? So again, I didn't do it initially, but somebody told me, hey, niche it, find that thing. And I did that. And then I wish I hadn't have done it, because it literally went overnight. It went from, 50, 60 t-shirts a month, which is manageable, man. That's like one t-shirt, 2 t-shirts a day, man. Not a big deal, to, hundreds and then even thousands of shirts, man. And understand, I'm waking up 7 o'clock in the morning and not being done until 9 o'clock at night. And like Mike, I had to make that decision but I couldn't leave it open at that point now, because I have already crested that part where orders are not going to slow down. And even if I stopped marketing, the marketing's not even me anymore. It's like everybody else. And I know it's the same thing for Mike and his general. And I didn't price it appropriately. It was very much for veteran nonprofits and stuff like that. So it became a point where, I had done my own damage myself because something that I liked. And so I think you're both right. Like, you're both on that interesting kind of qualm right now.
And that's a hard one, especially when, because a lot of my stuff, again, the plaques, the flags, it's veterans, and so things like pricing it, especially, by the time you take in your material costs, your time costs, all that kind of stuff, and then to be able to still provide, a service or a product, for a certain population that might not have as much, kind of extra cash laying around, especially when it's for something like, let's face it, a scale American flag coin rack is not a necessity. Although I would like to tell people they need it.
Yeah. No, I mean, and listen, I'm still trying to find my coins. I don't even know where they're at, to be honest. You're probably very similar to me.
About that, because if you notice, and eventually there'll be a flag sitting on the wall here, but there isn't now.
Same thing for me. Yep.
And all my coins, I think, are in some like Rubbermaid or Tupperware container somewhere.
It is exactly right, man. Before all this COVID-19 happened, somebody stopped by and they're like walking around going, hey, man, like, weren't you in the military? I was like, yeah, man. They're like, where's all your stuff? Oh, hold on here. And I like open up the closet and it's all like stacked up on the thing. And just having a conversation with them where, hey, man, my last 14 years in the military, it was not about you. It was about others. So honestly, I don't feel comfortable putting it on the walls. I don't want it on the walls. And I've changed a lot here over the last, 5 years since I've been retired, to where I understand that it's okay to say, that I was in the military, right? Like, it's okay. It's fine. I have nothing against it. And now you see a lot of the stuff I have is very American, because I'm still patriotic, man. And I do miss it. I miss giving back.
So especially being on terminal leave right now, I've thought a lot about this, and I think I am going to put some stuff on the wall.
Yeah.
Because I am proud of the,
you earned it, man.
4 years.
You earned it. That's right.
But at the same time, what I don't want to happen is I don't want to, and I think this goes back to the whole growth mindset thing. Like, I don't want to rest on that. I don't want that to be the defining thing of my life.
Yeah.
Although it's an amazing thing, right. I'm not done.
That's right.
I still got more left.
No, I completely agree. Well, where do we find your shop? Like, where can folks go to even to contact you if need be? But you got a web address or anything that makes sense?
Yeah. So Mertzke Custom Woodworking, and I've got my website there. You can contact me there. All the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, probably the most active on Instagram and Facebook. I got a TikTok. I haven't figured it out yet. I got to like dance in my shop.
That's great, man.
But then power tools, I don't know how that works. So yeah, I'm pretty easy to find.
I liked, I don't know that you knew, but I did troll you probably a couple weeks ago. You were doing a video where you were, I think that video where you're just kind of talking to folks and then you started to cut wood and stuff. I think that you need to keep doing that, man. I don't think there's enough folks that are, and I know you used to make videos back, and I mean, some of the best videos I watched were honestly your videos. There's another guy, Papa's Wood Shop. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Mm-hmm. He's a good one. And then there's I can't remember the other guy, but almost everything I learned was watching you guys, some of the videos that you created, and then figuring out how the pieces went together.
So I get a lot of requests to start my YouTube channel back up and make videos.
Yeah, you need to do it, man. Here's the thing, man. So the other thing, like for us, like this thing, think about like webinars, think about like just live streaming. So if you never heard of twitch.com, you should go to it. Everybody sees that as like a gaming platform. It's not, man. It's a content creation platform. When I saw you, and YouTube's fine too, you can live stream it on YouTube, and the video's there forever.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, Facebook. The thing that was interesting to me is that I started watching you, and I just kept watching you. Like it, and I'm not watching you.
Sounds kind of creepy, Ray.
It's not weird. Hey, let me just say, you had the nicest shirt. No, I'm kidding. For me, there was a couple tricks or things that you're doing. I was like, oh my gosh, man, that's how you do that. And because I just did not. Yeah. Again, I mean, you know it, man. Like you've learned things from other people. We all learn from other people, and it's just genuine, man. Being able to watch you and go, oh man, that's something I never would have learned because I probably never would have asked you because I just think you're too busy or I'm too busy or whatever the case may be, man. I think it would be huge, man, for you to do that. I just really do.
I have a couple friends that have that are kind of in the maker space that have Twitch channels, and I've thought about it, but all that stuff. I think a lot of people. I mean, obviously, you guys understand. Having a podcast. Yeah. A lot of people don't understand the time commitment that it takes. Whether that's audio editing, video editing, and stuff like that.
That's right.
And then how I'm gonna, sneak in some corny jokes.
No dad jokes. That's what I'm talking about.
I seem to be well known for that. Last year I went on a mountain expedition up in Colorado, and we got off the mountain, and by the time we left the mountain, I was known for corny dad jokes. So,
well, that's good. Well, at least you have a sense of humor. Will just like stares at you, mean mugs you. It's like he's trying to get your money every time. Like, look at him right now, bro. I know everybody else can't see him, man, but he literally right now looks like he's about to stab me. He's like, yeah, you know what? I'm about to, we're going to see what happens when you get to the sheriff's office. Anyway, well, Mike, man, I can't thank you enough. Sorry, Jake fell off a little bit. I know he had some good questions to ask you. One is I appreciate your time in the military, man. It was absolutely an honor to serve with you, bro. I know our history is not done together. We will continue to move forward. With all the stuff. I look forward to seeing more from woodworking from you, man. You're a talented dude, man. And I just think, I told you this in person. I know you could scale that business, bro. And I know it would be super impactful, but you got to do the right thing for you, man. And it's not about what anybody else says. You don't want to take a hobby. And I think that's the other thing you and I talked about is once you take a hobby to a business, man, it's just, it changes everything, man. And you will walk away at some point just because it's not fun anymore. So, and then also congratulations on, soon having a new family member coming into your family, which is good.
Coming soon. 6 weeks out.
Good for you. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm cringing. I go, just imagine us go all the way through that again. And what Will, Jake, and I are going to do, Mike, I'm going to continue to help you, man, get the right career, man, because guys and gals need you. Somebody needs you inside of an organization as their security guy, man. So just know that we'll continue to do that here over the next month or two. So anything else? Will, you got anything from your side, buddy? All right.
Just,
Mike,
you can find us at coffeesquadpodcast.com, Facebook, Coffee Squad Podcast.
Yeah.
Follow,
and then all the Stitchers and the
comment
and the Apples and the Googles. Mike, any final words from you, my man?
Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed this. Keep this up. This is awesome. I'm a listener.
That's good. Well, we enjoy it. Well, we're going to get you back on, man, for some other stuff. So maybe we'll do one of these with you. Hey, you know what we can do? We can do one of these and have you cutting the wood. Like you working in the background, just have it on, and then we can just do the podcast. But you need to turn the volume off.
Okay, next time on location.
Fishnets. Have like a fishnet shirt on. And Will, why are you shaking your head, bro?
I thought you liked the overalls.
overalls. You can still do fishnet and overalls.
I like it, man. Whatever. This just got creepy as crap. All right, everybody. Thank you as always for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.